Welcome everyone to tonight's program, Rooted in Nature. I'm Mary Cronin, the Director of Audience Engagement at Brandywine Museum of Art. Our program this evening will focus on introducing children to nature through picture books and also through outdoor activities. This is a theme that's very meaningful at Brandywine. Most of you probably know that we are the Brandywine Conservancy and Museum of Art. So two parts to our organization, one part being the Art Museum and the other part being the Brandywine Conservancy. So here's a program this evening that really does unite both halves well. We're recording the conversation this evening and we'll post the program on Brandywine's YouTube channel in about 2 weeks. We welcome questions and we ask that you add those into the chat. Tonight's program will highlight the work of two author illustrators whose recent books are featured in Brandywine's current exhibition, Rooted: Family and Nature in Contemporary Children's Book Illustration. And that exhibition will be on view at the museum through February 28th. I'll probably say this a few times, but definitely encourage folks, if you haven't had a chance to see this exhibition in person, I encourage people to come, if you're able to come see it in person. It really, the images are just really amazing. I'm going to start with some introductions. Juana Martinez-Neal is the award-winning author and illustrator of Zonya's Rainforest, which focuses on a young indigenous girl living in the Amazon rainforest of Peru. The book has received high praise for its environmental message and exuberant illustrations. The first book that Juana both wrote and illustrated, called Alma and How She Got Her Name, was awarded a Caldecott honor. Among her other achievements, Juana illustrated Padma Lakshmi's recent children's book, the New York Times bestseller, Tomatoes for Neela. Micha Archer is an artist, illustrator, and educator who has received many awards for her work, including a Caldecott honor for Wonder Walkers, the book we'll discuss tonight that's in Brandywine's exhibition. The beautifully collaged illustrations capture the sense of curiosity felt by two children as they explore the outdoors. In addition to her writing and illustrating, Micha knows her audience well, as she previously taught kindergarten students for 15 years. And also joining us today is Melissa Reckner, the program manager for Penguin Court, Brandywine's preserve that is located in Western Pennsylvania in Westmoreland County. To expand the lessons found in the books, Melissa will share some creative and practical ideas for introducing children to nature. Let me share my screen now. Okay, hopefully everyone can see this. Let's see here. And we'll go ahead and get started. Here are the two books. I should have had this up when I was telling you the introduction, but here are the two books we'll be talking about tonight. Again, Wonder Walkers and Zonya's Rainforest. And we're actually going to start tonight with Zonya. So I'm showing you this book here, seen here in both the English and the Spanish language editions. And Juana Martinez-Neal, thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Here, good night. It's nice. Thank you so much.
It's great. Through the miracle of Zoom, we're able to all be together to be able to talk about these amazing books, and this theme of children and nature, which I think is a very, very important and interesting theme. I want to show, as we start talking here, here's the full cover art for the book, just to give you a better sense of the art that was created for the cover. And we'll talk in a moment, Juana, about how you created these images. But first, I wonder if you could tell us anything about your own childhood experiences of nature. Is there anything that stands out?
I was born and raised in Lima, Peru. That's it's 11 million people. It's a big city. So my one thing that in the city, but one thing that I really remember is the trips to the beach. We were really close to the ocean, but we had my dad will drive us to the south, to the South beaches. And and it was just spend the whole day there, and it was absolutely wonderful. Since I can remember, other things I had that happened growing up was we will have these trips into the nature, you know, like going to the woods, and we'll drive 1 or 2 hours and just go and take some food and do a picnic, or maybe go to a restaurant on the way back, or on the way there. So yeah, that's but I think overall I was lucky enough to have both parents that really encourage us to be out and about, and we have parks, and the thing is, not everybody has the the wonderful gift of nature close by. So parks make a great great option for those families. Yeah.
Absolutely. I guess I didn't realize in reading this book and thinking about your life story that you grew up in more of an urban environment then.
Yeah, I
So,
did. Yeah.
so interesting, really interesting. And so then I guess my next question, and I'm going to show this picture, is sort of where did this story then come from? You know, what was your inspiration to start telling the story of Zonia?
When I moved here, I have a process of adjusting, not getting, you know, becoming a quote unquote American. I dislike the word American, but that's basically the process of becoming, you know, from this country. I kind of forget everything. I forget my language, my history, my music, my food. I strip myself of everything in order to fit in this new life. There's a process of, I think everyone will probably go through this, of it gets to a point where you realize that, you know, this does not work, and you need to go back to who you are, and that's your roots. There's a trip back to Peru, and that kind of gives me that shake that I needed to understand, you know, that I need to go back to, you know, Peru. And that's when I write, that's when I go back to not only changing my illustration work, but starting to think about books that represented my country. And that's when Alma comes. And right after Alma comes Zonia. Zonia is a way to show a side of Peru that most people don't think about, which is the Amazon. Most people think that Peru is only Cusco and the mountains. So that's kind of like where my journey to Zonia starts. There's a really long story behind it, but it's an effort to try to show a side of Peru that is not as often shown in picture books.
And I want to look a bit at, you sent some pictures of a journey that I assume is in Peru, but someone asks if this picture on the left is in Arizona.
That's Tucson. Yeah, absolutely. That's in Tucson on the left. And then it's
Okay.
walking on Thanksgiving Day around my house in the woods on the right.
Okay.
Yeah. The thing is, I don't take pictures when I'm traveling. I don't take pictures when I'm enjoying the space. I'm just there existing and having fun, and really taking everything in. So I don't have any pictures of me in nature, because unless somebody else takes them.
I
Yeah.
understand. You're
Yeah.
there experiencing it yourself. Well,
Fully. Yeah.
you did send some pictures, which I'm going to share.
Mhm.
Maybe you can tell us a
Yes.
little bit more about what some of these were. One of them was a video. Unfortunately, I couldn't get that one to work in my
Oh, that's
PowerPoint,
okay.
but
Mhm.
if you want to
This
tell.
is one. I spent 3 weeks in the Amazon in Peru in January of 19. This is a year before COVID and everything. Um, and as I was telling you, I don't take pictures of me when I'm doing the trip. I take pictures of what's happening, if I take any. So these were some of the photographs that I took myself. This is how you move in Peru, in the Amazon. The rivers are the highways. So you take the river to go anywhere. You can be in the river for 12 minutes, 15 minutes, or you can be in the river for 12 hours or more, right? And this was a trip that I took. I think my longest trip was 6 hours, a 6-hour boat ride. But I was traveling within those 3 weeks. I was traveling to different Ashaninka communities, and you travel like that in a boat, like that. And this is on the right is, that's what you see, that's your destination. You tell them the name of the village you want to go to, and then they just stop there, and you know, you go. And then when they're going to come back, you just stand there and hope that they show up. Yeah, but
Gives a
yeah,
different
it
sense of
was,
time, I
it,
guess.
it,
Like,
it absolutely is. I mean, and if they don't come, you have to wait a whole day. So you hope that they do.
wow.
And they do, yeah.
It must have been an amazing trip. You had sent some more pictures of that, but thinking about the book, one of the things that I was struck by, we have this drawing, and there's a picture in the book as well, a final image of this. And I just wondered, sort of like, at what point, either in your own life or on this journey that you took when you were researching this book, did you realize that you were also going to write about some of the threats to this rainforest, the fact that the rainforest is threatened?
It was the very beginning. It was from the very beginning. That was the initial idea. And the thing is, it's not only the threat of environmental damage to the area, but it's also the threat of just people disrupting the communities and changing them, because they intervene, right? Being because they want the, what they have in the land. And
So,
that was the very initial idea. It's a long story, but it goes, that's the motivation behind the book, the disruption of the culture.
yeah, that seems it's central.
I think the challenge of the book is how to present the story in a way that is not scary, or that the children won't feel completely devastated, which is reality. But at the same, there's a fine, there's a fine, I don't know, there's a fine line of where is too much and where is right. And that was what Marilee, Donovan, my editor, and I kept going back and forth. I mean, it's how do we tell this story? How do we present the problem the best you can? And the best approach to me was, okay, so we present this little girl existing, being who she is, enjoying her life, right? And then once you are completely involved in her story, then we show what's happening, and then you feel touched because you became a friend, and now it affects you in that way,
No, I think
because you
that's
care.
effective. It's
Yeah,
effective in the book.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Here's a few more pictures from
Mhm.
that trip to Peru. Just kind of go through. Love this
I
one.
love this one.
Yeah.
Is the lady, she's wearing the traditional, it's called a kushma, and it's kind of like a straight dress with one cut on the neck. Um, but the access to water is not like here. So you have limited access of water. You have one place in the building where you can get the water. And it's exactly what she's doing. She's filling out the tub so she can give the baby, who happens to be her grandson, her grandbaby, a bath. Yeah. Yeah. But it shows the difference of, all the privileges that we have compared to
Absolutely.
other
And they're
people. Yeah.
surrounded by water, but the clean water that you
Mhm.
can use for this purpose. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely.
And thankfully, the water is subsidized. So they are able to pay, but it's much lower. She is a Chipiva woman. She's not a Shanika, she's Chipiva. And what she's doing is she's doing that amazing painting, and they do these vases, these ceramic pots, and they do it also in blankets. And that blanket that I have, which was what started everything, is I needed to find a new blanket. I have this blanket for like 20 years, and it was getting really, since I had it hanging throughout all that time that I've been in this country, the sun slowly was, taking the colors, like fading it a little. So I wanted to buy a new one. And um, that was one of the extra trips that I made, because I really wanted to get a new, beautifully painted, hand painted blanket from the Chippewa people. Um, she did not have one. I bought some some of the pots, but she did not have them on because they don't do them anymore. Not like the one that I have. Yeah.
Interesting. So things are changing. It's for some people.
Well, interestingly enough, they are painting them really colorful instead of being that monochromatic that tones, because they sell easier
Mhm.
to the tourists, which is
Okay.
really sad because
That
it's
is,
just gorgeous the way it was before. So yeah, that again, the floor they make their own rugs, right? So they are not laying on the ground. And then, they were making fish for in that case, they wrap it with, leaves and then barbecue. Mhm.
interesting. So you really were immersed in the culture on that
Mhm.
trip.
I tried.
And and then I guess you come back and this is a picture you sent of your studio. So then you're
Yeah.
working in a studio. Um, this is a nice image of your studio. It looks very tidy. Is it always this tidy?
Well, there's more paint, there's more things on the table, but around it, yes, tends to be. I do have clotheslines on the left that go all across the studio. That's where I hang my work as I'm working, so I can see the paintings while I'm painting. Yeah, but I need to have things in order.
Understood. And these were two views, I suppose, from where you're living
That's
now.
my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my house in two different seasons. I took both pictures. So it's the fall, it's beautiful. And in the summer, it's just absolutely amazing because it's all canopy and it's just beautiful to see the light go through the trees. It's just something that I enjoy. But you walk that way to get to the street.
So you're really surrounded by nature now where you're working. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
we are. Yeah.
And I want to get into the story a bit and well, into these images, really, these beautiful, incredible images. Um, and I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the materials and techniques that you use to create these illustrations. I have a few things that you shared here. This is part of the story, I
It's a
think. It's
paper.
paper. Yeah. Tell us
Yeah,
about that.
I was working on the sketches for Sonia, but I love paper, just like Micha does. I love paper, and sometimes I feel like the not sometimes I feel like the artwork calls for what materials you use. I'm a mixed media artist, but I try to tweak my work depending on each book for what I feel needs to be used. And in this case, I knew that the illustrations needed to be like feel I don't know, rough, thick, heavy, just wild. It really needed to feel like that. And I was on my search of what paper would I use. And I happened to find my old live drawing sculpture teacher from when I was in Peru. And I was, this is from 30 years ago. And she happened to post on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook anymore, but at that time I was. She posted this picture of this paper, not these pictures, but she posted about this paper that was handmade paper by indigenous women from the Amazon that was made out of banana tree bark. And as soon as I read that, I knew it. I mean, I knew it in my heart immediately. That's the paper that I need. So it was a whole search, but at the end, I find out I get the one of the people that were selling the paper, and then we message through WhatsApp. I bought the paper. I have it shipped to Lima, and then my best friend kept it for like 2 months behind her bed until I made it to Lima to pick it up.
That's
But I bought
dedication.
everything that they had. Like what's like, I don't know, between 40 and 50 sheets of that paper. And that's the paper that I had. And that was scary when I was working because if I were to make a mistake, I was completely out of paper.
Oh, wow.
So that made it work a little more stressful and it took longer to make the work just because I was so scared. Yeah, but it's absolutely amazing. That's my table in Arizona because I painted the book when I lived in Arizona. We moved to Connecticut 3 years ago, and that's basically all the materials that I use. I hang my sketch in front of me, and if you see on that sketch at the top, I make notes with like color pencils of what colors I used That way I can, and I put the name, the number and the name of the color. So I can keep track if I were to like come back and try to paint it again. I know exactly what colors I use. Next to it is what I called my contact sheet. And I print out every spread that I need to paint. And as I finish them, I cross them red. That way I kind of encourage myself of 3 more, 10 more. Of course, at the beginning, it's like you have 18 more to go. But that's how I do it. And then it was printmaking. So I use these lino cuts and wood cuts for everything that was greenery. Yeah, like right there. And then the paintings were done with pastels and color pencils and a little bit of acrylic also.
We have some
on
of
this
that
paper.
in a minute, but the really this is amazing. These lino cuts that then you print, and then it just creates this lushness of the rainforest. I was struck by it before I knew that was how you did it. My eye got really caught up in noticing the repetition, which was sort of fascinating. It was fascinating to me. And then when I found out that was how it was done, it all made sense to me, but it just creates this amazingly lush feeling.
There's a repetition, but there's the randomness of the transfer, which I thought was exactly what it, and then the randomness became even more so when I used this paper. The paper had two sides. One was rougher, where you can feel the texture and you can touch it really. And then on the other one was flatter, but I chose to use the rough area because that when I transfer, then I will have more unevenness. But yeah, I never knew what was going to come out.
There's a lot of variety, and then the color and the layering, it really is. It's a fascinating effect to me, and sort of knowing how you did it is really interesting. And then you said the colored pencils, and I mean, look at this amazing progression here of adding.
It took 2 weeks to paint.
Oh my gosh!
And it's actually that cover, yeah. But it took 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks to get done because I had to go leaf by leaf, paint every single one. And this paper was so rough that it ate the color pencil completely. I mean, it would like my color pencil will be gone in, half the time. Yeah.
And it just sort of creates that feeling of greenery everywhere, but a lot of variety in that greenery. It's very, very different plants, different shades of green. So here's this image from the book. She stops to talk with some chatty neighbors, chatty new neighbors. This is a really fun.
And it was very clear from the very beginning that I needed to have this in printmaking. Like when I was sketching, I already knew that I needed printmaking for the foliage, for the greens. I mean, now that I think back, it's like, how did you know? How did I know? I don't know, but I just knew when I was sketching it. I was like, and I was doing that. I was repeating shapes when I was doing that, when I was sketching it.
Someone asked how you did your research on the different animals and birds that would have been there.
The birds, the animals, it was a really difficult decision. It was a matter of what to use that will show variety, and at the same time, it was really difficult because I had only so many that I could include, and I wanted to put so many more. So I had a spreadsheet, the longest spreadsheet, and I still have it. And I was trying to see the ones that were in some way threatened, and then that put together will make sense in the story at the same time.
Definitely. And that's part of the fun of reading the book, is that experience of going through and seeing who is in the forest along with Sonia. The book's really told from a child's point of view, which I think is very effective. You sort of tap into that sort of her experience of being in that space. And of course, it's very fanciful as well, because I'm not sure we'd really be riding on a tiger or leopard or whatever this is here. And then this image, Sonia knows just who to visit when she wants to be quiet and still. I thought this brought such a great change of pace to the book because she's sort of walking through, running through,
Yeah.
meeting everyone. There's sounds, there's all of that. And I think you make such a
It's
wonderful
quiet.
point
Yeah.
here. Yeah. Of
Yeah, it's this sense of quiet. Yeah, yeah.
So it's yeah, you can go to nature not only for excitement, but you can go there for quiet and for respite and as a place to think. Um, and I
But
thought
Shatter makes a point about the markings, and yes, I lost myself making those background lines, um, one by one, and I was thinking, what am I doing? but but it's how it was. It felt like it felt very natural to do that in that spread, and it's the only one where I did it. Yeah,
with all that, yeah, all
yeah, those lines.
the pencil marks um, and then the story ends with the idea that we all must answer, that the forest is calling and that we all must answer. And I thought that it was an effective way to end the story with the idea that we can be involved in saving the forest and natural resources. And one of the special things in this book is the very back actually has resources that tell you about a bit more about the history of the rainforest and what's happening there. So it might not necessarily be, that part may not be written on a young child's level, but it's definitely written on a parent's level. And it's something that a parent or an older child could share. And just, it gives you a lot more to think about the real history of this place and the people who live there.
Well, I do think that the whole book is the sense of community, that we are all one, that we are connected, and we close with this, we close that we must answer, we all must answer, because it's still this sense of community. We are one. I mean, whatever affects one will affect other people. We are not one. We are all together. And that's something that we clearly can tell now with all the problems that we're having. That we see with weather and water and too much rain, too dry
Yeah.
other places, too hot. And that's one of the reasons why we escaped Arizona too, because it was becoming hotter and hotter and hotter, and it was having water issues. But we are all, it's just that sense of community, I think, that it starts with the sense of community, it starts with a community and it ends that we are a community, to me. Yeah.
I think that comes across well in the book. And then one last question for you is just what are you working on next? What's coming next?
Yes, I just shipped artwork for a book that I'm really, really, really excited about. It's called, initially it was called Paca Paca con la Papa. Paca Paca is a Quechua word for hide and seek. And it's Alberto Salas. He's this man who goes, to me, I call him a bear, but he goes finding the native and different varieties of potatoes throughout Peru at different areas before they disappear. So we can study them. And what they do, he works with the gene bank at the CIP, Centro Internacional de la Papa, the Potato International Center in Peru. And they study the potatoes with the idea of, if we get that information of how plants are growing under such bad conditions and, little water, bad soil, and they still grow, then we can apply that knowledge, to all plants and vegetables, which will keep all all of us, eating, which is fantastic. But it's a book about him, and it will be simultaneously released in both English and Spanish. So it will be Alberto Salas plays Paca Paca con la Papa, or Alberto Salas juega Paca Paca con la Papa. And that will be Roaring Brook Press, written by Sara Fajardo, and it's coming out probably in a year from now. And then the other books are my Alma Boar books that I love. They're so bouncy and young and happy, and such a difference between the two. And I'm working on 3 and 4 will come out this year, and I'm working on, there will be 2 more that will be coming out the following years. So I'm really excited about those. Yeah.
Wonderful to see Alma's story continue. Definitely. And we'll look forward to the other book as well. Well, Juana, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll come back to you probably at the end with some more questions.
Thank you so much.
But I'm going to take, we'll switch gears here now, and I'm going to speak to Micha Archer. We'll give Micha a minute to get her camera turned on, and we'll talk about Wonder Walkers. And
Okay, I thought I put my camera on. Can you see
oh, there you
me?
are. I do see you.
Okay.
Let's
I don't
see.
see me, but
Let's
that's
see.
okay. I don't need
Oh,
to see
I'll have the
me.
spotlight. Now I see you.
There.
Okay. That should work. Hopefully that should work. Hopefully folks can see you as well as the cover of your book. And I want to actually go to this image, which is the full artwork for the cover, of the book. And ask you, how did you get the idea for this book? What was your inspiration?
I think it was from collecting questions from kids about nature, and especially one question from my daughter, which is in the book, is do mountains have bones? And it was because we were looking at the mountains on a walk, and we said it looked like a bear sleeping, and she said, do mountains have bones? And I think that was like the first question that I just wrote down in my little tiny books that I keep. And that was the seed. And then I started realizing that I had a bunch of those questions written down and that there was a book. And I think when I figured out the title, that's when everything just fell together. And it kind of, something about the title was kind of powerful. They were like, it was like a superheroes. They were going to go out and wonder together. So that was how.
Definitely. It seems like an activity that you could do just once you hear one of these questions. I feel like your mind goes in that direction, and you keep thinking along those lines of more questions that you could ask about nature. And just looking at these photos that you sent in of yourself in nature, and I'm guessing that one is more recent and one is long ago.
Yes, you're right. The one of me up close and old is in the rainforest in Costa Rica, which is a place that we go every year and spend a few months, and I set up my studio there. And the other one is me in India, I think in Kashmir, actually, with my family. We lived in India when I was a little girl and spent a lot of time in the mountains. My family, we were always hiking and canoeing and hardly ever in the house. My mother always, there were 5 of us, so she was constantly saying, go outside. So we always found a lot to do outside.
So you've had this curiosity and experience of nature from a young age, and
Oh,
really,
definitely.
and beautiful nature, really sort of astounding nature, with a view like that. Wow.
Yeah, and I was lucky. My mother was a preschool teacher, so she really knew how kids thought, and she, had a lot of ideas about how important it was for us to be looking closely at nature. She was also a painter, so we ended up doing a lot of art together outside, drawing and painting.
Interesting. Did that influence at all your work as a kindergarten teacher?
Oh, definitely. When I was teaching, it was constantly, it was based on art. Because that's what the kids wanted to do, either be outside or do art. And so that was how you kept kindergartners happy. So there was a lot of art in the classroom.
And I'm sure you heard a lot of questions in that role as well. A
Oh,
lot of
yes.
interesting
Yes,
questions.
the best questions, yes.
I always think that age group has a lot to teach us.
Yeah, and I always feel like kindergartners are kind of like on the edge of magic. They still believe in magic, but they also know that it's probably not true, but they just still want to believe in magic. And so you know, when the questions in the book, you know, it's pretty obvious that branches are not the arms of trees, but, you know, let's pretend.
Exactly. Or
So-
this one is the sun, the world's light bulb. Yeah, beautiful spread from the book here. One of the things that caught my eye was the musical notes up in the trees. Thought that was sort of an interesting thing to include, along with some of the more abstract patterning. Really beautiful.
No, thank you. It's whatever works, you know, I keep trying. It's just like trial and error. I mean, some of these are just layers and layers deep because I've decided, no, maybe not. I think I'll use this paper instead. So there's many layers in here and lots of time.
I think one of the effects, at least when I saw this work, especially in person, one of the impacts of the work, it's a process of discovery for the viewer. It's almost, I almost felt like I was outside discovering things, looking at an image like this with all these layers and patterns, and there's just so much to see. And so you sort of
that's what I want.
replicated, yeah, you've replicated that experience, I think, for the viewer. And also, as you mentioned, you know, you've had a lot of experience with young children, and I think that shows as well. You really seem to tap into that childhood perspective with the book.
Thank you.
And let's see, I wanted to talk a little bit about where you work and what your studio is like. What can you tell us about this?
So this is actually a studio in Costa Rica, but it's actually our bedroom too. So we rent a little cabin, and I just put 2 screws into the wall and then placed my book on. I like to have my whole book up so I can see it, because I feel like the pieces relate to each other. And you can see how much things have changed since because I remember being really frustrated with the ocean, and you can see on the right-hand side, the ocean is dark there. And, you know, I think there must have been about 10 layers before I got the ocean I wanted. So yeah, this is where I work in Costa Rica. And here I work right here in my house. And I can see my studio wall from my kitchen. So I can see if a piece of work is working, like if it's the composition is working, because I'm seeing it from so far away. And I really feel like that is important in a storybook, especially when you're reading to a classroom of kids. You want all the kids to be able to read the picture from far. So that's a plus about having my studio in the house. And also it means I can be making a soup, and then I can run into my studio and work for a little bit and come back into my kitchen and throw a few things into the soup. So
It's good. It gives you a way to get away
good.
from the art, and then
Exactly. It's
But-
really
but be-
important.
yeah, but you discover
Let it-
things in the process, luckily.
Exactly. Let it breathe.
And then, so a little bit like Juana, you have a process of like a printmaking process that you use.
I do. I spend days just creating paper, which is like completely the opposite of when I'm actually putting an illustration together. It's very free, and I'm not necessarily thinking exactly what the paper is going to be used for. I'll just create it. And so here I'm using blocks of wood, and I take whatever I can find and stick it onto there. But a lot of these are made with inner tube, the rubber inner tube, tire inner tube, and I just cut them and glue them onto wood. Sometimes I use string. I've been trying paper too. I can just glue pieces of paper, curled paper on. This is just rubber bands here.
Interesting.
So I'm always just sort of playing and seeing what works. And then
Some
when
examples of the paper.
yeah. And then when I'm ready, I just start working, and then keep taking out pieces and seeing if the colors are right and the texture is right. So it's all very it's serendipitous. and just whatever works.
And then it looks like you also do some sort of more traditional sort of layering of tissue paper.
I find
then-
tissue paper is wonderful for skies, especially because you're seeing all the layers of clouds.
And then
It's
this
nice.
image on the right, you said you used credit cards to make. Is
That's
that
right. That's right. You just take you make a little line of acrylic at the top of the page, and then you just take a credit card and smooth it. You know, I call it screeding, which is actually a concrete term, but you're just smoothing it, and it just gives the best textures. And sometimes I only use just one little tiny piece of a corner of a piece of paper. You know, it's not necessarily using the whole sheet. And I also use a lot of origami paper, and sometimes we'll just take one tiny little corner of it just to make, you know, a pattern on a shirt or something.
So here we see some of that layering and the little bits of paper on the right. And then for the faces, though, you use a different technique. You're not layering.
Yeah, I use acrylics or in this one that you're looking at, this is oil. And then I've been using acrylics because oils are so, you know, they take so long to dry that and I'm always working till the last second. So I've decided to go to acrylics, but yeah, so I like to use acrylics on the faces just because I think you can get a softer feel than a collage face.
Let's see, someone says, your layering techniques are phenomenal. So minute and precise, appears tedious.
It is very tedious. Yeah, I think I'm a little bit crazy, but I can spend
Yes,
hours
some
and
of that.
hours, like Juana said, making those lines. And then, you know, sometimes I end up I cover it up because it's not right. So I just have to be very patient.
And this was a whole series from a different book.
This is
sort
from
of-
Daniel Finds a Poem. Yeah.
It just sort of shows that process of adding and layering that goes on. Let me see here. And then this one is this more of a sketch for this? This is our branches, trees, arms, but this one is a sketch for that image, I think.
That's right. I do my dummies all different ways. Sometimes I do it all on pencil. These, I think I just used like 3 magic markers, you know, the primary colors, and then I scan it into the computer, and then I work with it until I get it right. So this is just to make the dummy. And these drawings are tiny, you know, they're really like almost the size of a credit card, because if they look good small, they're going to look good big. So
That's a good point. And then here's one that is a finished image from the book. Our trees, the skies, legs. And one of the fun things in the book too is I think the scale sort of keeps changing. And here, the size of the trees is really the important aspect of this.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's funny because kids get really, really bugged because they wonder how the kids can reach the branches for the next one where they're sitting on the branches. And I have to explain that it's actually different trees. But, you know, it's funny when, you know, you do something and you don't think of all the details that the questions that a kid is going to ask. So, I mean, I try to think of everything.
It's funny
And you
because
can
they're
also see
literal. Yeah, they're
they're
literal.
so literal. I know. You can see in this one I had, yeah, there's a texture in the sky, and there was a whole bunch of trees there at one point, and I painted right over them because it just felt like it was too busy. So you're still seeing the texture of the trees in the sky. So, you know, you can see my
interesting.
process.
Yeah, it's an interesting discovery, though. I did notice that you can see it. Even in the book, you can see it, I think.
Yeah.
And then here's one of these really amazing layered ones with the this cave. Do caves have mouths? And here the children are crouched down going into this space, but the amount of detail in this landform up here is just incredible. Really beautiful.
Thank you. This one, that one was a question that my niece once asked me when we were taking a walk, and I said, "Oh, we should sit and have a picnic in the mouth of the cave." And she looked at me with a scared expression and said, "Do caves have mouths?" So, it's great to have now have a record forever of my niece at 2, who's now 16, but it's kind of fun to actually have frozen that in a book in time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's see here. And this is the one with the ocean that you mentioned. And actually, I'll just skip ahead to this because it kind of shows some of that process that you went through.
Yes.
Assembling it. Yeah, it's kind of
Mhm.
interesting here to see that happening. It's almost like when you really go to the beach and you find all the way the water has washed up those shells
Mhm.
and they're all there. But you're sort of,
Yeah, I love that. I love the way the water carries it and puts it in a big arc. It's just so beautiful.
and then here it is again, finished.
Yeah, and you can see the tiny shells that I cut out are just parts of origami paper or whatever I could find that looked like shells.
Amazing. Yeah, really beautiful. And someone asked if we are recording this program, and it will be, the link will be available later for viewing if anyone missed anything. And then is the river the Earth's veins? Some more beautiful
Yeah,
detail.
this one changed a lot as I went, because I had a whole different kind of drawing. And when I got to Costa Rica, I was like, that doesn't look like a river. And I completely changed it because I was influenced by these huge rivers that go right through our town that we stay in.
Wow. And then I'm finishing up with your book with this image, which is really one of my absolute favorites. I think it's the most incredible image of rain. It really captures also the joy of embracing rain, that I think children have more than adults. I think most of us are reaching for an umbrella, or we're disturbed when it's so windy that we can't even use the umbrella. But I love the way these children are just embracing this moment, really joyous in nature.
There's a great book by Robert McCloskey called Time of Wonder. And there's a scene where the kids are out in the rain. It's been sunny and then rainy and sunny and rainy, and suddenly the sun comes out, but it's raining. And this, I think this is like a little homage to that whole scene.
Definitely. Someone asked, how long does it take you to create one layered or collaged picture?
God. I mean, I work on all of them at once. I probably take, I would say, 9 months. I give myself a year to do a book, both writing and illustrating. And it usually takes me a year, but there's a lot of days where I have to let things sit and take their time. So, and I have to go outside and walk and get inspired and move my body, just like kids need to. So
To experience nature yourself. Yep, to keep going on with it.
That's true. I live at the base of a beautiful mountain that I know so well. I've lived here. I actually went to a camp that was at right on this property. So I started climbing this mountain when I was 7. So
Oops, sorry. This is jumping ahead on me. There we go.
so yeah, it's like one of my good friends is my mountain, Mount Toby.
Well, that close relationship with nature definitely shows in this book. And then I wonder, do you have anything to say about what you might be working on now? I know this isn't your latest book, probably. What anything other projects that are underway?
I have a book coming out in February called What's New, Daniel? So it's the third book in the Daniel series. And then I just got proofs from a book that I wrote about wind, called The Ways of the Wind. And I'm working on a book with Ann Winter, who wrote Nell Plants a Tree and Everybody in the Red Brick Building. So I'm just in the middle of that right now. So lots. It's great.
Lots
I love
going.
it. It's
So-
hard. It's very, very hard, but I'm glad to be challenged at this point in my life like this. That's good.
To have so many projects is wonderful.
It
Someone
is,
asked
and
if you've collected quotes from other children. Someone said they heard a child in Yosemite ask, if you wag a dog's tail, does it make it happy?
That's great.
It
I
seems
love
like
that.
it could be a whole book itself right there.
I get so many great, actually, since Wonder Walkers came out, I've been doing a lot of school things, and a lot of teachers will send me these lists of questions that kids make up, and they're fabulous. And I think there's definitely another book coming out with, I have to
You have to have more of these
honor
questions.
these questions. They're wonderful. They need to be heard.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Misha. I think I'm going to actually stop this share now, and we're going to go on to the last section of our program. We've seen two amazing picture books here this evening that focus on children's experiences with nature. And reading these books with children would be a wonderful way to introduce children to experiencing the outdoors. And to follow up that experience, I've asked Melissa Reckner, the program manager for Penguin Court Preserve, to share some ideas from her perspective as an environmental educator for getting children out into nature, and also ways to encourage them to see the importance of preserving nature and the environment. So I'm going to turn this over to Melissa to share her screen.
Excellent. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you both, Misha and Wanya, for sharing the process behind your wonderful illustrations. I always love the colors and the textures that artists use whenever they're conveying the sense of nature around them. One of my most favorite workshops that I had ever participated in was called The Color of Water, and everybody reaches for that blue crayon, but in fact, water is clear and really just reflects the environment around it that a lot of people don't take time to consider. So thank you for sharing those wonderful colors in your illustrations. I was happy when Mary asked me to participate in this evening's program, and she said just put together a few slides on ways to kind of foster that environmental stewardship in children, which I think a lot of them inherently have. But of course, there's lots of ways that we can keep that going. And I think the best thing to do is just encourage their sense of wonder. And of course, Wonder Walkers is all about that. Of course, it's easy to use your sense of sight, but I always encourage children when we're outside to close your eyes, because immediately then your other senses are heightened, and those senses, especially your sense of wonder, fuels your sense of awe. And research actually suggests that the more awe moments we have, the more happiness we have in our lives, the better health we have, and the more connection we have to our neighbors and the landscapes around us. And of course, that's how you develop a healthy environmental ethic. If you can't get outside, an easy way to encourage wonder is to create a mystery box. You can just simply take a shoebox, cut a hole in it, put some items in there, and have kids reach in and see what it is that they're touching and feeling, or maybe smelling. Of course, taste and touch with extreme caution. If you are comfortable in the environment around you and you know what is safe to touch or taste, have at it. But if you're not sure, of course, it's probably best if you visit a sensory garden. A lot of master gardeners maintain them, or participate in guided programs with a master naturalist, or a lot of our state parks have environmental educators who do wonderful programs throughout the whole year. Anytime you can connect the world around children to the adaptations that help animals in that world, you know, what kid doesn't love animals? I think that's an easy way to connect kids to nature. Making observations in all seasons is really important. I mean, we saw beautiful photos of Wanya's home in the autumn and the winter, but, you know, going out sometimes to the same place to uh, feel it in those different seasons is really important and can convey the sense of change that occurs in our seasons. Encouraging kids to be out in all weather types, even on cold days or rainy days, as some of the illustrations shown. Of course, kids do embrace the weather much more readily than adults do. Getting out at different times of the day, I think, is really important because the light can really change the vibe of an environment. If you have difficulties getting outdoors or you think, oh, I don't have the right stuff to go outside, so many more libraries and conservation or watershed organizations are developing what they call gear loaner programs. So if you want to borrow a set of snowshoes, you know, this winter we might actually have enough snow to utilize them outdoors, or you want to borrow a pair of trekking poles. You know, so many more organizations are making them available so you can borrow them and not have to invest in them yourselves. I like always making games of outdoors. Nature bingo is an easy one, or scavenger hunts. You know, what child doesn't enjoy a scavenger hunt? And anytime you're outdoors, I encourage you to have the children practice leave no trace principles. And that means planning ahead and preparing for being outdoors, making sure you tell somebody where you're going when you anticipate being back, taking a map with you, having a rain jacket with you, enough water, especially on hot days, keeping to the trail because a lot of plants are sensitive and don't like to be trampled, so keeping on the path is really important. Packing out what you pack in because nobody likes to see litter in the environment. Taking only pictures, which is pretty easy to do because nearly everybody has a phone to do that, but leaving what you find, you know, or what you think is cool where you found it so other people can experience it as well. Of course, respecting nature and keeping a safe distance from animals, minimizing campfires, and, you know, practicing the golden rule and just simply being kind to others. I should have dropped this in sooner. One of my, I don't want to say favorite sayings, but maybe most utilized sayings is that there is no such thing as bad weather, only unsuitable clothing. And that's so true. Sometimes you just need the encouragement with a friend to maybe get outdoors on a not so sunny, warm day. But if you layer up and you know how to be outdoors, it really can be a enjoyable and one of, you know, some of my favorite memories are from some of those kind of unsightly or unseemly weather days. Of course, whenever using similes is a great way to connect children to the environment. And Wonder Walkers uses similes a lot, where you make a comparison of one thing to another thing of a totally different kind. So, you know, Wonder Walkers compared a watershed or you know, the rivers to the veins and arteries of a human body. But you can also liken that to the trees around us and the tiny buds to the branches to the main limbs to the trunk of a tree. I like the pictures where, you know, you see a thumbprint, which is individual to each person, and likening that to the tree rings or to the agricultural landscapes that so many people see in their neighborhoods. I think it's important to give kids the tools to allow them to develop that sense of wonder and enjoy the outdoors. Uh, Giving them field books is really helpful. You know, I was delighted when I was reading Zonia's Rainforest. I wondered what were the animals that I'm looking at, and I was delighted to come across the guide in the back of that book. Like I said, cameras are really great for capturing those incredible finds, or even not so incredible, because everything is special and has a purpose in nature. As our artist clearly demonstrated, having journals and paints and pencils to sketch what it is that you see can be a really fantastic way for kids to sit down and focus and really take in the landscape around them. If you want to drill down into some of the more creepy crawlies, you know, having a bug box is helpful, so you can kind of have a bug be a little more stationary and really examining it using a magnifying lens to focus in and really count how many legs are on this critter. Binoculars for gazing at those birds that might be a little more off in the distance, having an insect net to trap a butterfly temporarily to observe the colors and the scales on its wings. And then, of course, the more practical tools of sunscreen and bug repellent and baby wipes when you're outside. I think most importantly, you just have to give kids permission to get dirty and wet and sloppy. You know, some of my favorite childhood memories are days when we came home drenched and filthy, but, you know, we had a lot of fun getting that way. Even in adulthood, you know, being out in nature with my friends, some of my best field days were the days that it just poured down rain and we got drenched, but we got our work done. I know it makes more work, you know, with more laundry to do or muddy boots to clean up, but really that's so helpful in having kids enjoy the world around them. Then for encouraging stewardship, I think if you volunteer, take your kids with you. You know, a lot of my background is in watershed work, and we love to see the parents come with their kids and help us with a litter cleanup. You know, there's no better way to model good behavior than doing it yourself. Creating challenges is something you can do indoors at home. You know, who turned off the unused lights, who took the quickest shower, who turned off the faucet when you were brushing your teeth, who repurposed an item, you know, or recycled it, who saw the most birds at your feeder out the window, or who safely relocated that spider and not just smushed it with your shoe. Raising funds can be a good way to encourage stewardship, you know, and have those funds go to a nonprofit that's important to you. Of course, going for a walk or a hike as a family and practicing those leave no trace principles that I mentioned. And one of the easiest things is to install nest boxes or feeders around your house. I think it's really important too to share success stories and personal stories. You know, Zonia's Rainforest lists the threats to the Amazon, including logging and mining and oil and gas extraction, which of course has happened for decades and continues to happen in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has been logged since colonial times, but that really ramped up as the coal and steel industries flourished in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And sadly, you know, before 1977, and there was a law passed that told coal mining companies, hey, you can't pollute our rivers anymore. You know, there's a lot of legacy abandoned mine discharges that we have to address, especially here in Western Pennsylvania, where our streams run orange, like the photo you see here, or a lot of sedimentation comes in from a rain event. And, you know, our rivers look like the Hershey Highway. And so before I joined Brandywine, a lot of my professional career was spent cleaning up mine drainage discharges that look like this and making those orange streams blue again. And one of our best success stories is with the Kiskiminitis River, which is a tributary to the Allegheny River, which of course flows into the city of Pittsburgh, when what was then the Department of Natural Resources surveyed the Kiski River for fish in the 1980. They did not find any fish whatsoever. They actually, in their notes, documented one frog. But flash forward, because like I said, it was 1977 that these laws took effect, and there were 16 species of fish captured. And then in the year 2000, still 16. But it was around the year 2000 when so many more watershed organizations formed, which are mostly volunteer-based, and more funds came available to address these discharges. And, people plugged away at their part of the woods, and everybody understood that the waterways were connected. And in 2015, which was the last time that the Fish and Boat Commission surveyed fish on the Kiski River, they documented 28 different species of fish, which is phenomenal. And I know that's not even all of them, because I have friends who fish the Kiski and find walleye, for example, that were not part of the Fish and Boat survey. So I'm sure that number could be even higher. And that we really celebrate as kind of our Cinderella story here, but it's also a cautionary tale that we need to keep on top of this so that we don't backslide and that another extractive industry doesn't cause similar problems. And finally, I think it's important to remember that you do not need to go to a nature preserve to experience nature. There's so much nature in neighborhoods, in urban areas, and in the suburbs, and the sense of place or home is very powerful in fostering environmental stewardship. And a lot of those feelings of your home place come from childhood experiences. I was the classic tomboy playing in the streams, playing in the woods as a kid. And I'm just, delighted and blessed that I can make this a career now, protecting our natural spaces. But you never know what you might spark in a child. And I just, you don't have to think, oh, we have to go to the woods or the forest to experience nature, because it's really just outside your window.
Thank you so much, Melissa. This really gives us all some great ideas for getting outside and yeah, not only with children, but ourselves as well, I think, and for helping nature as well. I want to thank everyone for coming this evening. We did have one question. I wondered if, let me see if I can, where did that go? There was a question. Here it is. We'll see if there's someone on who might know this answer. I don't know that I do. Someone said, I recently visited the beautiful exhibit, was curious about something. I've never before seen an illustrator's original artwork. My question is, when the Caldecott Committee judges the nominated titles, are they given the artist original illustrations or the published book format of the artwork? And I don't know the answer to that, if they see any of the original. I think probably
I don't think so. I think they
published
just
book,
get the
yeah.
book.
published
just-
book. Okay, Shadri and Micha, thank you both.
Yeah.
So it's the published book. Okay. So interesting. Yeah, I mean, we're so lucky at Brandywine to get to see some of this original artwork, and Brandywine Museum has been one that throughout its history has recognized the artistry of illustration. And in particular, the last few years, we've had some amazing exhibitions of children's book illustrations. And I do highly encourage folks to come and see some of this work in person. As I said, this exhibition will be up through February 28th. If you're able to come to the museum. And I think that was all the questions we had. Does anyone have any other questions before we finish up here this evening?
I just want to say thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Micha. It's been wonderful to have you, and thank you, Juana, and thank you, Melissa. It's really been a great opportunity to share these amazing books, the process you've gone through as artists to create these books, and to share this message of sort of the wonder of nature and the importance of preserving it. And I thank you also, Melissa, for giving us some of the practical ways to be doing these things just in our own lives as well. So thank you everyone for joining in. We will have a recording of this probably available in about 2 weeks. We edit the captions first, so we will have that available then in case you missed it or would like to share it with someone. So thank you everyone, and good night.